Hello everybody, I hope you're really enjoying the Excel and Power BI Summit. My name's Mark Jones and I'm one of the people actually behind these summits, and I help produce them and put them on. You've probably seen my face on a lot of the sales up pages and my beautiful bald head. That's me, I'm Mark, and I thought it was about high time that I actually did a session, because I do a lot of on-camera work with trying to help you to buy passes, get free passes, etc., and tell people about the summits, but I never actually dive in and do a session, usually because I've got no time. But I thought on this one I really did fancy giving it a go, because I spend a lot of time in Teams. I can get by in Power Automate, I can get by in Power Apps, and also Power BI, and I'm by no means an expert in any of those, but I think I've got a good grasp of how you could use Excel within some of these applications. And what I wanted to do is just give you almost like a teaser session for each one to show you what's possible. So for example, if you want to be able to update a spreadsheet from a Power App, or if you wanted to trigger off a particular workflow that puts data into SharePoint based on something you type into Excel. So I've got loads of these sessions coming up, and I think there's 4 or 5 of them. They're all broken down into bite-sized chunks, so each one's around about 5 to 10 minutes long. Really hope you enjoy them. Keep the questions coming, and once my session's over, please don't go away, because there's so many great sessions coming up. And thank you so much for coming. It's been an honour to have you here. Hope you enjoy this. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is a tool called Microsoft Forms and how that can be used to integrate with Excel. If you don't know what Microsoft Forms is, Microsoft introduced it, I have to say, around about 3 or 4 years ago. And it's a really, really user-friendly, dead simple way to create online forms or surveys. So if you're used to things like SurveyMonkey, then it does a very, very similar job, and they've done a fantastic job because it is so simple to get started with. And so for this example, what I'd like to do is create a form. It's going to be a sports quiz, because I quite like my sport. And I want to show you how you can analyse those results in Excel. And then once you've done that, I'm going to show you a really cool way of actually how you keep the thing up to date as the responses come in. So let's get started with creating a new form. And let's call it the Excel Summit Sports Quiz. Right, so you can do things inside forms, like you can add new images, etc., and different colours. So let's pick a theme just to gloss this up a bit. Let's have that one, that's quite nice. So it's going to be a nice brown quiz. So once you've created your title, you then have got the option of using different types of questions. So you can have text, rating and date questions, but for this we're just going to use choices, and we're interested to find out what people think about who the best sports people are in their categories. So we want to know best footballer. Okay, and we're going to say Messi or Ronaldo. And new. Then we want to do the best rugby player, because I love my rugby player. And I'm going to say Dan Carter, who was just a magician at number 10 for the All Blacks, or our good old Johnny Wilkinson. And then finally, let's add one more, another choice question, best tennis player. And then this has obviously got to be Federer versus Nadal, or even maybe Djokovic. So that's it, that's the form created. It's dead simple, it's pretty much WYSIWYG, so you can see this is pretty much what the end user would see, we're obviously with the exclusion of these little tools here. But if you want to share that now, you've got 2 options. You can either share that people so it's secured down to people just inside your company, i.e. your tenant, or you can do it, which is really cool, you can actually share this with anybody on the internet. So it's a really good way of getting feedback from people outside of your company. So I'm going to copy that link, and then I'm going to bring up a new incognito window, so I'm actually kind of using this as a completely anonymous user, just to show you it works. There you go, it looks exactly like we designed. Now I think the best footballer is Messi. I kind of think the best rugby player has got to be Johnny Wilkinson. And then I've always had a soft spot for Federer, so I'm going to pick Federer and click submit. And that's it. Very, 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 very simple. So already you can see that I chose Messi, Johnny Wilkinson and Federer. Now, if you want to analyse this data a bit further, just assuming this had like 50 questions, etc. If you want to analyse your data, what you'd do is you'd open Excel, because you might want to sort and slice and dice the data or pivot it, for example. And then what happens is Excel loads, and what we've now got the one response. So each response is given a specific ID. You can see what time I started it, when I completed it. That's always going to be anonymous for me because I shared it anonymously. They didn't know who I was. And then I chose Messi, Johnny Wilson and Federer, which is really, really cool. So that's fantastic. Because if imagine you've got thousands of responses, you could filter that data, sort the data, or do whatever you need to do in Excel. Now, one of the downsides of this, just imagine you've got extra columns here, so you wanted to supplement this forms data with some kind of calculation. So if you're asking people for their views and ratings on rankings, and you've got loads of financials in here, you might want to put your extra columns in there. Or if you wanted to share this with your team, then what somebody'd have to do is they'd have to go into that form, export the response, then upload it and save it into your document library every time, in an hour a day or once a day or something. So the data would be a bit behind. So although this is really flexible for kind of one-time snapshots, it's not really good if you want this thing to be centrally stored in Excel all the time. So what I want to do now is I just want to show you how you'd go about achieving that using a product called Power Automate. Now, if you're not familiar with Power Automate, it used to be called Microsoft Flow, and Microsoft Flow allows you to connect systems. So if you want to connect SharePoint with Excel or SharePoint with Office 365, Power Automate will wake up based on a certain trigger which is defined. It will pass the data into that trigger and allow you via a series of steps to do things and manipulate the data and put it into another system. And so that's what I'm going to do now. So for this flow, what we're going to do is when a response comes in, we're going to take the response and we're going to put it into our spreadsheet that we've created centrally, that's accessible via Teams, and it means that our team can always see the up-to-date data as soon as it comes in live from the internet, which is really, really cool. So to do this, let's just bring over Teams, for instance. Now, what I've got is we've got a testing team here, which is obviously just purely testing for this conference. So I've created a sportsquiz.xls. I've already got a couple of items in there. We don't need those. Oh, I need to edit that. Don't need those, get rid of them. So this is actually a data table inside of Excel, and you have to make it a data table so that Flow can pick it up. Now, one thing to note is I couldn't find a way in Excel Online, which is what this is that you get to with Teams, to actually give it a name. But if you basically downloaded that from the library, gave it a name, and I've called it sports_quiz, then you'll be able to pick up that and use it within inside Flow. If you don't do that, it's going to have a name like Table 1, Table 2, Table 3. And if you want to maintain your flows going forward, that's going to get really messy. So you definitely want to name your data tables. But for our instance, this is a data table. It's called sports_quiz, and we've already got 2 items in there. So that's in there, and the way we get to it in Teams is it's in the files, and it's in a document library called Sports Quiz. And if you want to see that in SharePoint, let's just click open in SharePoint, and there you go. It's in a document library. It's called Sport Quiz, and it's really nice because I can access it via Teams. So now let's go over to Microsoft Flow. So my flows, let's just get back to there, see what we've got. So I've tested one earlier, so let's go and do a new flow. So what they've done is Microsoft have created loads and loads of templates that are kind of predefined sets of flows that you can use, and you can see there's tons of them. You can filter it all at the top. So if you want to do something with email, so for example, if you want to start an approval when a new item is added into SharePoint, that looks like. If you want to do some processing with email when people put things into Flow, there's tons of them. You can do things with calendars. Approvals is obviously a very big one for Power Automate. But what we're going to do is we're just going to create one from scratch. So we just click create there. I'm going to go automated flow, and I'm going to call it Summit Flow. Now I wanted, in fact, it's the top one here. You can pick loads of triggers down here. but I'm really interested in when a new response is submitted to a form. So I'll do create. Just takes a bit of time to wake up. Here we go. Right, going to pick a form. Now I called it, what did I actually call it? Let me just, Excel Summit Sports Quiz. Let's go back to that one. There you go. Right, so that's connecting my form to this flow. Then I want to add a new step, and the new step is going to be a forms step. So I want to do things with the form response as it comes in. And what I want to do is I want to pick this action called get response details. Now this will give me a handle on the current response that's just coming in. So again, you have to pick the flow. So I'm going to pick the Excel Summit Sports Quiz. I'm not really bothered about the response ID at the moment. So I'm just going to pick that one. I don't want to do anything with it, so I just pick this, which is the list, the response notifications response ID. And then the next step I want to do is I want to go and put this into Excel Online. And I'm going to, first off, I'm going to pick add a row into a table. So we're going to add a row. So once a response comes in into my form, we then add a row into a Excel table. Now this is where you go pick it. Now this is going to allow us to pick loads of things like OneDrive for Business or Office 365 groups or SharePoint sites, etc. But the one we're interested in is the group testing team. Now we know it's in the document library. Now the file name is called, I pick that, and hopefully it's called Sports Quiz. And then the table, when it wakes up, is called sports_quiz. So if I don't name that, that's where that would say table 1. And if you've got several of these, several tables in one spreadsheet, you'd scratch your head basically and think, well, I don't know what's what. So now it knows about that response from forms. It knows about the questions. These actually equate to the column headers inside of the Excel spreadsheet. So I'll just go show you this quickly again just to explain that, because it's really important. So you can see I've given the headers in our table, and I've called them footballer, rugby player, tennis player. And because we've just connected to that spreadsheet, it knows about those columns. And now it's saying, if you want to add a row into table, where are we going to get the data from? And obviously we've now got a handle on this response detail here, and it's now available to us here because that's now been piped into this action. So all it's a question of now is doing best footballer, best rugby player, and best tennis player, and click save. And that's it, pretty much save now. So we want to go test it, and I want to go and test this by, I'll perform the trigger, so save and test. Now what we'll do is we will go and put a new entry in anonymously. So I'll do share, copy, bring in a new incognito window, just like that. Now I'm going to go and pick Ronaldo, Johnny Wilkinson, Nadal. And then if we open this, hopefully it's going to drop in. There you go. So that's now put that extra row in, which is really, really cool. Now one of the key things to note, it isn't actually instantaneous, and it kind of, sometimes it'll run within seconds, sometimes it can take up to a minute. It really depends on how much activity is going on in Microsoft servers at that particular point in time. So that's cool. And one of the other things is, as I've just tested this, you can now see some kind of diagnostics about what it did, which is really useful for testing purposes. So you know that it's picked the Ronaldo, Johnny Wilkinson, Nadal from there. And that's pretty much it. So we've now got this flow. It's all set up here, and it's called the Summit flow. And if you want to go back into it to edit it, you can do. So you can do things like look at the analytics for it and share the flow with other people as well. So if you want to edit it, you could just go back in and see it that way. And that's cool. So that's a really good way of actually seeing how in real time you can create a spreadsheet that's stored online, that's accessible in Teams, where your teams can then actually communicate. So I could start a conversation here, and I could say, ooh, new entry's come in. Entry has come in. Anyway, it's a dead simple example. I won't go into too much more detail about flow. Like I say, if you want to get much more in-depth knowledge about Microsoft Flow, then I definitely suggest you look at our previous Flow Summit, because we have some real experts that know way more about it than me, where you can really deep dive into it and learn a lot of the concepts, and there's so much more you can do with Flow than I've shown you today. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that integration. Let's get on to the next one. Hi, so this integration is all about synchronizing your Excel spreadsheet that's stored online, i.e. in this case it's in an Office 365 group, but you can easily have it in OneDrive as well, and synchronizing that to a SharePoint list. So if you've ever wanted to say, right, take some data from your spreadsheet and put it to a SharePoint list because it's easy to manipulate in the SharePoint list, then just keep watching, because I'm going to show you how easy this is. Right, so what we've done is I've created the concept of a Christmas party at a company, because obviously we're getting towards Christmas now. And the idea being they'd placed in their name the type of meal they would like, what their entertainment idea was, and then the number of seats on the bus. So they're bringing a partner, and then put 2 if not 1. And then obviously we want to, the line manager might look at this and go, right, well, they can have the time off work and they're approved, or no, they can't come. Let's just say we're quite a tough company and not everybody can come to our Christmas party. So obviously you can just type the data in here, but if you didn't do what I'm going to do, what you'd have to do is somehow synchronize this data with SharePoint, so you probably have to manually copy and paste it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Power Automate. So keep in mind this spreadsheet, this is again like in the previous example, that's now a data table. And now let's go over to have a look at the SharePoint list, which is title, which is going to become name, the meal they want, their entertainment idea, number of bus seats they'd like. So what we want to do effectively is when we enter information into here, now this actually could be, if you think about it on the previous example, you could have a form which puts data into this list, and then you could have somebody that just clicks yes or no to approve it. But I'm just going to manually type it for now. So we've got the list, we've got the spreadsheet. Now how do we synchronize the two? Right, so enter flow again. So what I've done is I've created a flow here. Now this flow, because Excel doesn't have any triggers, so there's no trigger in flow where you can say, right, if somebody changes a value in a particular cell, then trigger a flow. So what you need to do is you have to kind of manage that yourself. And so what I've got is a flow that runs every minute, and then it uses the action to get a row from Excel. Now what I've done is I've picked the right location, which is my Office 365 group called Testing Team, which is exposed via Teams. I've picked the document library. I've picked the Excel party submissions list, which happens to be this one, Excel party submissions. And I've also created the data table, which is this data table here. And I've called it Xmas Party Invites. So remember last time I said it's really important to name your table something meaningful. And then I've said if the key column approves, so the column in the Excel is approved and the value is equal to yes, then I want it to run. So we've got an approved column here, and then so if you imagine what I'm going to do is I'm going to type a name, the type of meal I want, the entertainment idea, number of seats on the bus, and then I'm going to type a yes for approved. And then what will happen is we do a belts and braces check on that, which is if the approval is equal to yes, then it's going to fall down this part of the this leg of the flow, and we're going to use the create item action for SharePoint. Now what that's going to do is it's going to put it into the into this particular site, and it's going to be a list name called Xmas Party People. So if you look at the URL here, it's collaborators.sharepoint sites testing team. The list is Christmas Party People. And then into the SharePoint list columns, I'm going to put meal wanted value from Excel, the entertainment, and the number of seats. And these are effectively equate to the columns in the SharePoint list. And these equate to the values I'm going to type in my data table. And then once that's run, what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to delete that particular entry from Excel, because if this runs again in a minute's time, we don't want it to duplicate it. So as soon as it's come in, it's put it into SharePoint, delete the item. So let's go ahead and run it. So let's say Mark Jones wants to go, the meal I would like is actually gluten-free. My entertainment ideas, I think we should have a really cool band. Number of seats on the bus, because I'm going to take Helen, so I want 2. And then I'm going to click yes, because I'm approving myself. Right, so the next thing is, if we're lucky and refresh that, that will have run, but it just depends on how fast Flow runs and whether that minute's kicked in. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to run this thing now. I'm going to run it via testing it. I'll perform the trigger, save and test, and run the flow. And then with a bit of luck, there we go. Mark Jones, gluten-free, band 2, and then if we go to Excel, the spreadsheet, voila, it's gone from there. So I did nothing at all. So the flow has done all of that for me, which is really cool. And then one other thing I'll just show you very quickly as well right here is if we click done there, and then what we want to do is I'm going to show you how to create a Teams card. Oh, I just need to edit that. Sorry, I'm not in edit mode. So let's put a new step in here, add an action. And what I'd like to do is pick Microsoft Teams, and then I would like to, somewhere in here, there's post a message. Post a message. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to post a message, which is going to be a little message that pops up in the Conversations tab. So let's go pick the team. It is testing team, and the channel is, I'm just going to pop into general, and the message is going to be just something called we've just approved a staff member to the Christmas party. And then I'd like to show you who it is. So let's pick what have we got here as an option. So these are the options we've got, because these are the options that have now come from SharePoint. So you can see the SharePoint list, they've been piped in for that create item. So in here somewhere there's going to be title. There we go. Title, that's going to be the name. I could do much better formatting on this, but I'm just going to do it quickly just to show you how cool it is. The meal, number of entertainment ID, and that's enough. You'll get the idea. So hopefully we're going to see a message in Teams when this is run again. So it's first off, it's going to put it into SharePoint, and then it's going to place a message inside of our Teams channel just to alert the team that somebody's been approved. Right, so let's go save that, and let's go back to our spreadsheet. Now Fraser on the team also would like to come. Oh, not Fraser, Fraser Beadle. Now he'd like turkey, and he thinks, actually, I was speaking to him and he thinks a clown would be a really good idea at the Christmas party. He's coming alone, and yes, let's approve him. Now once again, the flow will only run every minute, so I'm just going to kick it off now. So I'm going to go back into flow. I'll go back here. Oh, whoops, I'll save it. I'll go back in here. And I'm going to go run it. Run the flow. Done. Come back to here. Oh look, Fraser's already gone in and he said the entertainment was clown. And then let's pop into Teams, and with a bit of luck we're going to go into the channel here to Conversations, and there you go. We've just approved a staff member to the Christmas party, Fraser Beadle Turkey Clown. So hopefully you've seen that's a really good example of how you can master your data in Excel, put some of the business logic in Excel where you need to, and then have a flow that picks up every so often, takes that data and pipes it into services like Teams, like Outlook, like SharePoint, or even things like planners. You could go and create tasks, for example, inside a planner. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of power with Power Automate. So anyway, on to the next one. Right, so in the last example we saw how we could take data from Excel and post it into SharePoint. So I just want to show you the other way around. So what happens if you've got a SharePoint list and you actually want to pipe some data back into Excel? So again, we're going to do that with Power Automate. So this is the spreadsheet we want to put the information into, which is the same one as before. I've actually turned off the overflow because I don't want the overflow to kick in and spoil this demo. So let's go create a new one, automated, and we'll call it SharePoint to Excel. And when an item is created in SharePoint, so go create there. Now we're going to go and pick our SharePoint list. Now we've had a bit of trouble finding these, so we're looking for that one there, testing team, and Christmas party people. Next. We want to go Excel online, and we want to add a row into a table. So all we do, it's very like the first example with the forms. I just wanted to show you for consistency. So we're going to find the testing team, and we're going to pick the document library, and then the file I want is 2019 excess party submissions, and then it's Xmas party invites is the table. Right, so now we need to go and pick the name, which is going to be title. There it is. Meal wanted. Meal. The entertainment idea is entertainment. Bus seats, and then let's just say no for approved, just in case that other one does fire in. Right, let's go and test that. I'll perform the trigger action, save and test. Right, so now we want to go into here, and we're going to go and create a new list item, and we're going to call it Marilyn Monroe. She wants caviar. Entertainment is a singer. Bus seats, she's got a lot of friends, so she's going to bring 100 people. Save that. Okay, so let's just come out of there and go back in. There you go. So we've got Marilyn Monroe, she wanted caviar singer. So that's just a very, very quick example of how you do it the other way as well. So on to the next one then. Right, so in this demonstration, this is the one I'm most excited about because I think it's the biggest advance that Microsoft have made in the last few years. So when we did the virtual summit in Seattle in 2016, they announced something called Power Apps. Now, Power Apps is a tool that's aimed at power users. So it's aimed at people who like to develop things, but they're not confident coding, they don't know how to code, or they don't have the time to code. They're just they're business users that are very technical savvy, that like to get things built to solve a particular problem fast. So what I've done is I've downloaded a financial sample spreadsheet from Microsoft. Now this spreadsheet is nothing mind-blowing, but it's obviously just a good example of how a sales spreadsheet may look. So we've got the sales categorized by segment, what country they were made in, what product it was, discounts, units sold, sale price, gross sales, etc. I'm not sure what COGS is. Month name, year, when the sale was made, and I don't know what that is either. So there you go, that's the spreadsheet. Now I'm going to do something really different this time, because what I'm going to do is, instead of saving this into the traditional OneDrive for Business or a SharePoint library, I'm going to save this into Dropbox, because I realise there's a lot of companies out there that either haven't moved to OneDrive yet because they still use Dropbox, or they have partners that are comfortable using Dropbox, or even customers that are comfortable using Dropbox. So I've saved this spreadsheet. I'm just going to give it a save. I'm going to save this into my Dropbox. So you can see it's in Dropbox, and it's in a folder called Excel and Power BI Summit, and it's called Financial Sample, and that little tick means it's synchronized up to Dropbox, which is cool. Right, so the next thing I want to do, I'm in Power Apps. Now, once you log into Power Apps, you get offered these options for the screens, but we're just going to show you very quickly how to get started and get you so that people can go through the spreadsheet I'm showing you on a beautiful app on their phone that allows them to scroll up and down, dig into a particular product sales, and then if they need to, edit it or even delete it and also a bit of searching. So the option I'm going to choose, I want to start from data. And I'm going to go create a Canvas app that's targeted towards the phone. Now the next thing is you can actually start with data from these are my default sources, so Common Data Service, OneDrive for Business like I mentioned, and also SharePoint Lists if you've got data in SQL Server. But I want to go and pick Dropbox, which I've already pre-configured as a connection. Now if I scroll down here and go to the Excel and Power BI Summit, you can see that there was my spreadsheet. Now in there that's picked a table, so if I go look at the spreadsheet again and you see all this data here, this is actually a table. So if we go to look in design, you can see it was called financials, and that's what this is picking here. So I'm going to go ahead and choose it and click connect. Now this is a really cool bit. You can be busy writing code here now. Check this out. So Power Apps has now gone and taken that spreadsheet, that table of information from the spreadsheet, it's learnt a little bit about it, and what it's done already, it's created me an app. Now this is like a WYSIWYG editor, so this is the Power Apps designer. So once you click on these controls, you can see that the selection here changes on the left. If you've ever developed, then this is all standard stuff where you click on a particular control either in here or there, and then you get your properties here that you can change. So if you want to go and change that, for instance, to say financials 1, you can do. But let's see how well it's done without making any changes apart from that one. So you can see now what it's done is it's mocked up a view of a mobile for us, and we can scroll down. So imagine you're on a phone and you're using your thumb to flick up and down this. You can see all the data's on there. If we want to go and search for a different company like Mexico, there's your Mexican sales. If you want to go and sort it, that's it sorted by country. And this is things if you're not happy with the look and feel of this or the way it works, you can actually dig in and change all this yourself. But what I'll do is I'll go and change the first row of that data. I'm going to show you quickly how easy it is to update it. So hopefully the first row of that one equates to this first row in this spreadsheet. So let's just have a look at the sales, because I made the sales ridiculously big. So there you go, there's the sales. So it says 3 million there and 3 million there. Now again, like what you'd want to do is, if you wanted to take this and spend a couple of hours on this pre-baked Power App, what you'd do is you'd go in and you'd add some format in there, and you'd potentially put some different colours in. So if the sales was less than 10 quid, then you'd maybe flag it up red. But it's just a standard app that you can now go and format and customise however you want to. So let's go edit that, and let's go make the sales actually just think this product didn't do really well at all, and I'm going to give them just 20, and I'm going to click the tick, and that will go off now and save that data. Now what's happened there is, because this is synchronized to that Dropbox spreadsheet, what's happened now is that Dropbox has now been watching the file locally, and it's realised a change has happened on the server, and it's asking me now to go and get the latest version. So I'm going to go and do that. And hopefully, if we go across and we scroll to sales, there you go. Sales has now dropped back to 20. Now, how cool is that? Because that means if I was on the phone and I was changing data, now you probably wouldn't use a sales spreadsheet for this, you'd maybe use some kind of, like I said before, some timesheet recording or something that makes sense for an employee to use on the phone. But it's really cool because you can use it all on your phone, and it's stored centrally, and your team members are able to see your changes as well. So I think that's pretty neat. So if we just come out of that now, and if you can see that when you select these, you can actually change that. So if you wanted to go and pick that, and you wanted to pick a particular field. Now some of the fields Power Apps doesn't always play nice. Some of the fields you need to tell it about the formatting, etc. Let's see if date works. There you go. So I want to show the date the sale was made. I could do that. Click play, and there you go. I've just changed the date. It's very, very cool. And then if I want to go and let's go and delete this one. So Power Apps is now calling the delete on that spreadsheet, so that should be gone. So with a bit of luck here, sometimes this doesn't always happen immediately. Let's hope it does. I'll just wait. Right, so now you can see, well, I've just had to reopen that because it wasn't immediate, but it has actually saved, deleted that particular row, the one that had the sales of 20. So that's now gone, which is cool. So you can actually delete, so you can read your data, update your data, and delete your data. And the final one to show you would be, if I load this back up, we want to add a new record. So let's say the sales of 10, COGS 10, country is Canada. The date was the 5th at that particular time. Discount bound was 0. Discount 0. Gross sales were 10 million. Manufacturing price was 5 million. Save that. Come back to the spreadsheet. Get the latest version. A bit of time now, right down the bottom here. Yeah, you probably see. So what's happened there is actually stored the values it knew about. And the thing, what you do there is you go and, because Power Apps did the best guess it could of modeling this spreadsheet, it only added a few columns and it didn't have some of the kind of validation you would have. So what you do is you'd spend another couple of hours going into here, and then you'd probably, on the edit screen down here, you'd add more text boxes. So these are all things you can just literally drag onto your screen and then bind them to a particular field in that spreadsheet, which is really cool. So you just go and fix it up that way. And also, you don't have to do it the way I've done. You can actually start with a completely blank canvas and you could create that entire CRUD application that allows you to browse it, delete things and edit things all from scratch. You could do that yourself completely, and it'll change the look and feel and give it a bit of your custom branding. But I hope that gives you a good idea of how you could actually update some of your spreadsheets in a very user-friendly way on mobile and tablets. Thank you. Right, so in this last demonstration I want to show you something that's absolutely amazing. Microsoft a few years back actually introduced a feature called co-authoring, and what you can do with co-authoring is you can open up a spreadsheet, and then if another colleague is opening that same spreadsheet that's stored in SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business, you will see their changes. And it's got some really cool features, and one of the best bits is, and I'm going to try and demonstrate this, and it's quite a hard thing to demo because I've got a lot of moving pieces, hopefully it'll work. But one of the coolest things is that it also works on iPad, Android apps, within Teams, in the desktop, and also online. So let's go ahead and I'll just show you what I mean by co-authoring. So just to frame this demo a little bit, what I've done is I've created a spreadsheet called sales data, and it's the same one as I showed you earlier. It's just a sample one I got from Microsoft, and it shows you all of the sales data for a particular company, and it's stored within Teams, and that's actually stored inside the Office 365 group that's related to Teams. So if I go and open that in SharePoint as well, you'll see that it's here as well. So Teams is just a view on that SharePoint library. So to do this I need some help, because obviously I can't co-author this on my own, so I've got Fraser ready and prepared to actually come on and join with me. So I'm going to give Fraser a call now, and hopefully he's going to answer. So let's give Fraser a call. Right, so to make the call, what you do is you have chats with people inside of Teams, and I'm obviously having an existing chat with my colleague Fraser, and you can see you can just transfer messages, and it's like a normal chat messaging system if you've not seen Teams before. But to make a call, you can either have a video call where I share my camera and Fraser will share his, but obviously I'm sharing my camera for demonstration purposes, so I'm just going to go ahead and make an audio call to Fraser, and hopefully he'll answer. Hi Fraser, it's Mark.
Hi.
Are you okay to demo co-authoring with me?
Yeah, sure, let's go for it.
Brilliant. So what I've done, Fraser, I've actually created a sample spreadsheet. I've downloaded it from the Microsoft site, and I've put it into our testing Teams, and it's called sales data. So if you could navigate for me onto the files tab in the testing team and open up sales data in Excel Online, and I shall go and do exactly the same. And what I wanted to demonstrate here is actually how cool it is to see somebody else editing the same spreadsheet as you. So as you can see, this is just the normal spreadsheet that I showed you in previous demos. It's sales data, Now, if Fraser could go and edit one of the columns, we should see the edit come through onto my screen. So you can see straight away, right up the top there, Fraser is also editing. So that's really quite cool. So I can see that Fraser's editing. And there you go, he's just made one of the cell values yellow, which is cool. So I can hover over his name and I can see that it's actually Fraser editing it. And then the other really interesting thing to show you is if I click comments here on the right hand side and click new comments. So if I go to a particular cell, so I'm on, let's go and say I want to make a comment about this. Let's go say this profit here was far too high and I think it's an anomaly. So what I can do is I can go and say Fraser, I can mention Fraser directly and I can say this figure looks too high. Now what's going to happen there is Fraser on his side will actually get a notification to say that Mark's just sent him a message on here, and it will also pinpoint the cell. So you can see that L6 there. So this means that every single cell in this spreadsheet can have a comment thread associated to it. And so you can see straight away there, Fraser's now looking into that because he thinks it's probably high too. And he's just said, okay, I will look into it. And so we can chat that way. Now the interesting thing, what's really cool, if I'm offline, so I'm not in this spreadsheet at the time, and then Fraser was to comment to me, what will happen? Here's one I prepared earlier, if I can find it. I'll just open this and pull it in from Outlook. This is the email that you get to say Fraser Beadles mentioned you, and if I open that, this is an old example one we've worked on it, but if I open that, that's going to open it, throw up the comment on the right hand side, and then you'll be able to see the comment and also the cell that he commented on. And what's pretty cool, you can actually use this as kind of like a task list system. So if we feel that we have a chat and we feel that's actually looking okay, I can then go resolve thread. So that's a very neat feature, I think, and they've done some really cool things. And so one other thing I'd like to show you is that it's not just I can see the editing, but if Fraser's actually to do some more advanced things. So Fraser, could you go ahead and do a sort on gross sales for me, please? So we've got it ascending.
There we go.
So you can see straight away that that's actually visually represented on my screen. Now the other thing is this isn't just restricted to using Excel online. So if I go back to Teams and I'm going to close this down and I go here and I go opening the desktop app, and what happens is you can see now the desktop app's opened. So as with the online version, you can see that Fraser's already in this spreadsheet. And then what I'm going to try and do now is ask Fraser if he can do some more advanced things. So Fraser, could you go and do, say, filter just for the top 10?
Yeah, there we go. So top 10, there we go, top 10 profit.
That's perfect. And then would you like to go crazy with a bit of formatting, maybe format something yellow?
Yeah, sure.
And then at the same time with this, as you can see here, I've got my iPad. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to record this because I've got, I'm not sure if you can see that properly, but I've got the same spreadsheet open in the Excel app on the side of the iPad, and it's already gone yellow. But what I'll do is I've recorded the screen on there, and I'll put it alongside this one, so you can see that there's the split view. And so, Fraser, could you go and do, because I want to share this on iPad now, could you go and change a particular cell value?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to change VTT, the discount band low, to medium. That's
brilliant. So you can see right there that Fraser's, I'm in twice. I'm actually in Excel online, but I'm also in the iPad. And you can see I can be logged in both places and the update comes through, which is really, really cool. And Fraser, could you just pop a comment, please? Because I want to demonstrate comments that also work on the iPad, which is probably something you wouldn't imagine would work. And to do that,
I'm going to do a comment here.
Yeah, and so while I do that, all I do is show comment, and then hopefully this comment will come through. Could you just put another one in, Fraser? I've got this figure looks too high.
On the way with a new one.
It just takes a while for it to come through. And there you go. The profit column is updated. I can see it's L1, and it's already highlighted for me which particular one it was. So that's really, really cool. So, and that's also, if you've got the Android version of this, and it also works on the phone as well, the whole thing's got co-authoring, which I think is a major, major advancement for Microsoft. They've done pretty well with that. So the next thing is what we're going to do. We're going to go back to our trusted friend Teams. And Teams also allows you to edit directly inside of the app without actually leaving. So Fraser, because you could just go into Teams, please, and open up that same spreadsheet inside of editing Teams.
Yeah, sure. It's opening up now.
Perfect. It's opening for me as well. And what you can see, this is pretty much Excel Online. It's actually embedded in Teams, so it's got all of the same features and functionality that Excel Online has. But one of the beautiful things about Teams is when you edit a particular cell and you have the commenting inside of Excel Online, it's kind of restricted to that particular cell. But what happens is us as a team, say 3 or 4 of us, wanted to get together and actually discuss the spreadsheet as a whole. Now this is where Teams comes in. So if you can see the button at the top, I can now click Start Conversation. Now pretty much everything in Teams can have a conversation thread attached to it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, Fraser, this spreadsheet looks good. Can't type. Spreadsheet looks good. And then hopefully Fraser will write something back. And so there you go. That's not only allowed us to edit inside of Excel Online on a per cell basis, but it's also allowed us to talk about the spreadsheet as a team on a spreadsheet basis. And that gives you notifications. So if I go back into the channel now, so I go back into the Teams, and I go into conversations, you can see that Fraser's the conversation has been brought out here into the conversations tab, and we can see there, and we can also go back into the spreadsheet there with that link and bring it right back up. So it's a fantastic kind of end-to-end solution for actually co-authoring on an Excel spreadsheet. So I hope you like that demo, and I hope you see what's possible with it. And I just want to say at this point, thanks so much for attending my session. If you would like to see this session and also all of the other sessions before me and the much better ones coming up after me, then strongly recommend you take the All Access Pass, because that will give you access to all of the sessions. It will give you access to a minimum of the 10 ebooks that we write up. So the ebooks are actually I think they're actually as good as the particular sessions, because we spend a lot of time on watching the sessions and re-watching the sessions and make the book good enough so you don't have to actually watch the session. And then we're thrown in the microjobs voucher, and also a good friend of mine, John Mander, he's actually created some training nuggets for you. So you can just take those, put them in your own intranet and share them with your staff, and they're really good to get you started with Excel. But apart from that, I hope you've enjoyed my session, and big thanks to Fraser. If you want to say bye-bye, Fraser. I forgot you were still there. But thanks all, and enjoy the rest of the summit.